Wow. Today's gospel may be one of the hardest for us to get. Certainly does feel like a gigantic shift on Jesus' part from that gentle shepherd that we usually see. Considering the stress that we disciples already experience trying to practice what we profess, while at the same time being surrounded by skepticism and rejection or benign neglect by others, do we really need to have Jesus suddenly shift gears on us and tell us about this hard baptism and fire on the earth and division even in our families? Well, let's take a closer look at this. First, let's look at the context that we hear today. Jesus has just counseled his disciples to live in readiness for the return of the Son of Man. Remember that from last week. Now, he is clearly spelling out in extremely dramatic images the consequences of accepting or rejecting him. Jesus is indicating that his very presence gives a moment of crisis for those who are near him. Will they accept him and his way of life? His mission, he says, is to set the earth on fire. Responding to his call each day is like having a fire burning in us. It's a refiner's fire. It burns away the waste and consumes what is false in us. It also ignites a zeal for the Lord and his ways and makes us followers who accept the difficult demands of discipleship a daily routine. Jesus doesn't want followers in name only. He wants us to be fired up about him and the kingdom of God. Luke was writing for a church that was suffering great persecution. Troubles for Jesus' flock started soon after his death and resurrection. And because of their decision to be Jesus' disciples, they were expelled from their synagogues, and they were even expelled by their own families. And so it must have been really comforting for them to know that what they were suffering was anticipated by their Lord and friend. They experienced what he had told them. Jesus didn't come to establish peace, but rather division. And households were, just as he said they would be, divided because of him. Jesus was a fiery prophet because he was consumed by his call to announce God's loving embrace for everybody. And he knew that that would be a cost to that. But he continued on the road to Jerusalem, even though he knew he would be seized and tortured and killed. And so, can we name the times when we suffered because of our faith? Can we name the times when we spoke up in a family situation for what we believed, and because of that, we were alienated by some of our family members who are closest to us? Have we really felt the heat when, because of our faith, we spoke an unpopular position among co-workers and friends? Aren't there times when trying to live out our Christian faith, our discipleship has made us feel like foreigners in our own country? maybe even in our own parish community? Did we speak up on behalf of the sick, or the poor, immigrants, the helpless? Being a Christian can sometimes make us feel like foreigners in our own land. It's as if we're carrying a passport from another place. And we are first, before all things, citizens of God's kingdom. Jesus' vision and values are supposed to come first in our lives. All because Jesus has come to set a blazing fire on the earth, and that fire already burns in us. And we look back to that second reading from this morning, and we conclude that the heroic women and men who have preceded us in faith had a great cloud of witnesses. And they had very difficult times themselves because of their faith. They have passed on to us that blazing fire that Jesus has ignited by his life, death, and resurrection. And through all of their trials, they kept their eyes fixed on Jesus. And because of their example, we do too. At this Eucharist we do, and in our daily lives.